dear President of the Board of the Portuguese Diaspora Council, António Calçada de Sá, dear Chairman of the EurAfrican Forum, José Manuel Durão Barroso, dear Mayor of Cascais, Carlos Carreiras, dear Dean of Nova School of Business and Economics, Pedro Oliveira, distinguished attendees from Africa and Europe, bom dia, good morning. It is a great honor to speak before you at the 7th edition of the EurAfrican Forum, and I would like to congratulate everyone involved in organizing this successful and timely initiative. The EurAfrican Forum is rapidly becoming a milestone in Lisbon's annual agenda, and for those of us who are dedicated to promoting a closer connection between Africa and Europe. This is our goal today, to discuss why a closer connection between Africa and Europe is important, more than important, is fundamental, and how we can contribute to its development. First, let us start with why. Why are Africa and Europe relations fundamental to both our continents? And here the answer is quite simple. It's demography, it's geography, it's our shared history and heritage, and here we shall not prevent ourselves to say it. It's ties of affection between the people of our two continents. Africa and Europe are bound together in countless dimensions, and to not recognize this is to deny a fundamental truth in our geopolitical world. Let me begin with demography. As someone said before me, demography is the only social science that is actually an exact science. Over time, Europe and Africa have changed positions. In 1900, Europe had roughly 24% of the world's population, while Africa had 9%. Currently, the roles are practically reversed, and Africa will only increase while Europe will continue to stagnate or decrease. With a current population of 1.3 billion, it is estimated that by 2050, Africa's population will rise to 2.4 billion, almost doubling its number. That will be 42% of world's youth. 42% of world's youth will be African. In 2015, Africa will have added 769 million people to the workforce, while Europe's working-age population will decline by 156 million. And according to NDP, in 2050, Africa's population will be equal to that of India and China combined, and by 2100 will represent 40% of the world's population. This shows how significant Africa's role will be in our future. Demography means growth, means production, means consumption, means environmental and populational challenges, means migration. It is an incredible opportunity and an enormous challenge for Africans and for Europeans. Africa is also our natural neighbor and partner. If we look at the map, we see Africa and Europe share the same longitudes, the same time zones. At its closest point, Africa and Europe are separated by only 14 kilometers, which is closest than Nova SB, where we are now meeting, to the Foreign Ministry, where I work. This is just how close we are. If we look at the world, Africa and Europe represent an axe, a vertical axe, from north to the south, from south to the north. They are geographically aligned. Actually, we are joined by the Mediterranean Sea. The continents share the same geographic position. There is true geographic continuity. It is always useful to recall that the Roman Empire was not a European political entity. It was built around the Mediterranean Sea, the real Mare Nostrum, our sea, and not on one of the shores of Europe or Africa. This Roman polity was an entity that included North Africa, Middle East, and South Europe. This shows that there is a truly continuous space and that the promotion of an effective community of interests between the two continents is not unprecedented. It happened before. Sharing the same spaces and reality means that we also face similar challenges and opportunities, which, if we want to address properly, we have to face together. What affects one continent impacts the other. We see it with the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, which has impacted food and energy security in Africa. African regional conflicts and extreme climate change drive migratory movements towards Europe. In truth, almost all of the major threats and opportunities that Europe could face in the next century will require cooperation, intense and intimate cooperation with Africa and vice versa. The only way Africa and Europe have to gain leverage at the global level is to work together, to work closer and closer together. The reality is by working together, Europe and Africa can address the common challenges they face, to limit harm, to maximize opportunities. Such partnership, and this is a new point, is key as we face the current major geopolitical change, which is the shift to the Indo-Pacific. We are witnessing a considerable shift, a pivot to the Indo-Pacific. The world's economy and political focus have shifted towards Asia and the Indo-Pacific region. And we must find a way for Africa and for Europe to stay relevant in this new world. Here, there are two major geopolitical and geoeconomic visions that will, if we work together, allow us to keep our position and competitive advantage. First is the fact that, for Europe, Africa's eastern coast is an entryway into the Indo-Pacific. The Suez Canal, which connects the Mediterranean to the Indian Ocean, and the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa are the gateways to Asia. Africa is therefore an essential platform to engage with the Indo-Pacific region. When everybody speaks about the emergence of the Indo-Pacific polarity, the new center of the world, we must never forget, never forget that Africa is a major power of the Indo-Pacific region. It is indeed the West Bank of that region. Secondly, in order to counterbalance this geopolitical turn to the Indo-Pacific, we must guarantee that the Atlantic corridor remains an essential platform, which can only happen in partnership with African countries, but also with America. Europe, America, and Africa must have a triangular connection that guarantees that the Atlantic remains strategically relevant in the geopolitical realm. And to do this, we must endeavor to guarantee that certain conditions are met, such as concluding the European Union-Mercosur agreement, which is of vital importance to Europe and South America. We must also reach for a new transatlantic trade and investment partnership due to its obvious advantages and the need to de-risk from China. We must link and connect the entire west coast of Africa to South America and to Southern Europe. We must guarantee that the Atlantic Triangle, Africa, Europe, the Americas, is a guarantee of security and prosperity that can respond to the pivot to Asia, and that the Atlantic becomes a space of strategic depth from the Antarctic to the Arctic. So Africa's role is critical in guaranteeing the necessary balance in the pivot to Asia to balance out Asia's new central role. Africa is at the same time the Indo-Pacific's western boundary and an essential piece of this triangular partnership, which is essential to guarantee Atlantic's centrality. It is essential to understand that Europe needs Africa and Africa needs Europe. Resources, whether human, mineral, financial, and technological. Africa and Europe have all these in different amounts, in different compositions, and we must be equal partners in our approach to the future, offering opportunities to not only compete, but also to compensate such a shift to the Indo-Pacific, to balance the world's strategic and geoeconomic dynamics. It seems essential to take Africa into account as an unavoidable partner, and such a partnership is natural, is historical, and it's cultural. Acknowledging the absolute necessity of a closer Africa-European relation, understanding that in the current and the future geopolitics, we must be partners, equal partners, and I believe Portugal can play a vital role as a bridge builder between the two continents. Portugal stands out as a natural gateway between Europe and Africa. Portugal is thus the Atlantic gateway, the port of Europe, geographically and historically. Portugal has shared history and cultural connections with African countries that continue to resonate today. A common heritage that can be an asset in strengthening ties and guaranteeing that Europe and Africa are not left behind, facing the future together. We must forge a broad, comprehensive, and mutually beneficial approach in this relationship, based on trust, reciprocity, of the utmost importance to us, making possible to take this relationship as per the theme of this forum to the next chapter, partnering for growth, in a challenging and highly demanding external environment. Communication and closer coordination between the two continents is key. I believe that by working side by side and in the same direction, we can create favorable conditions for stability, growth, and shared prosperity. Working side by side as equals with mutual respect. And in this regard, we must not pretend that our colonial past does not exist, or that it does not condition in certain ways our current relations. Recognizing our past requires that our current relations be of absolute respect for each other's sovereignty and choices. It must be truly a partnership of equals. Which reminds me the final words of the poem O Grito, the Scream, by José Tolentino de Mendonça. Equal to equal, so unknown. Como nas palavras finais do poema O Grito, de José Tolentino de Mendonça, de igual para igual, tão desconhecidos. It's time to adapt the words of the poet. It's time to say, equal to equal, so well known. De igual para igual, tão conhecidos. Thank you.